Hey everybody, you're watching Ready Set Drone, and today I want to talk to you about the DJI NEO and why I think this might be the most versatile drone of 2025, so stay tuned. So the DJI NEO came out in the summer of 2024, and this little thing was kind of a surprise. I honestly thought this was what DJI should have done for their first FPV drone, something small, lightweight, safe, easy. But you know, they came out with a much bigger, much more powerful, much heavier FPV drone to start with. But now they've gotten into doing smaller ones like the Avata series and of course this. So this little guy, as I said, might be the most versatile drone you can get in 2025 and is definitely a drone that we are recommending for beginners. First of all, it's dead simple to set up. If you've never flown a drone before, you have to do a couple of steps, but there are way more complicated drones to set up than this one. This one you can actually set up using your phone. You download the app, you do a little bit of firmware update, you log in, create an account, bada boom, bada bing, you're done. It's really pretty easy. And DJI just makes it so. It's also sub 250 grams. If you're flying it just for fun, you don't have to register it with the FAA, so you don't have to worry about that. And it's also super lightweight and portable. So a lot of people look at this thing and just think you're flying a toy drone and really don't pay a whole lot of attention to it like they might a bigger drone like a Mavic or a Phantom or something like that. So it kind of flies under the radar as far as flying a drone goes. And I like that because I like to be able to go somewhere and fly and not have a lot of people asking me questions or questioning what I'm doing. Also, DJI has made it super simple with this drone because it has a USB-C port on the back. So if you buy the drone by itself, you can charge the battery using this USB-C port or an optional external charger, but you can also pull files very easily by plugging your computer straight into this USB-C. It shows up as a drive and you just copy the video or photo files right off of it. It's dead simple to use, just like a little external hard drive that flies. And another thing I really like about the DJI NEO, if you've ever flown a non-DJI drone and had to pair it with a radio using some other protocol like FrSky or ELRS or something like that, it's always a bit of a pain. Pairing this thing is super easy and it pairs to a lot of stuff. This drone has more options in the way you fly it than any other drone I've ever flown before. And let me tell you what those are. First of all, once it's all set up, you can just push this little button on the top and it has a bunch of different modes, including rocket and an orbit where it'll go around you, a droney mode, and even a follow mode where you hold it up, it goes a certain distance from you, and then it locks onto you and just follows you. You could bring this drone, and you can see how small it is with you, and take some shots like that without using a remote or using your phone. Now, if you want to, you can pair it with your phone and fly it with your phone. And that is great because I've actually been on a trip where I brought the wrong remote control and ended up using my phone to fly this thing, and it worked fine. It's not as good of an experience flying with the phone as it is flying with a remote control, but in a pinch, it works well. And a lot of toy drones are like that. They fly using your phone, and it's a great way to learn. So if you're trying to learn and you don't want to invest a lot, you could just buy the drone by itself, pair it to your phone, fly it with your phone, and also fly it using the buttons on top. And if you want to take your vlogging to the next level and you're going to use your phone instead of just pushing the buttons on top of the drone, you can also record audio using your phone connected to the drone. It records audio straight in with the other files and you're able to pull those files off, and it has noise cancellation so you don't even hear the sound of the drone. It's not great, but it's not bad in a pinch if you need to record audio with the drone. If you want to take it to the next level, you can fly it with the RC-N3. That's actually the only controller I haven't used to fly this drone, but it's the standard DJI controller. It pairs to your phone, so you use your phone for all of the app stuff and use the controller to actually control it with the sticks, the yaw and the pitch and the roll and all that sort of thing. But if you don't like tying up your phone to fly your drone, you can always use the RC2, which has a built-in screen and is fantastic because it does pair with multiple drones, including the NEO, and it feels very much like a camera drone experience. As a matter of fact, when you fly the NEO using the RC2, it actually flies very much like a camera drone because the image you're seeing on the screen is stabilized. You're not seeing a whirly-twirly FPV kind of image. You're seeing a stabilized image, and that's what it's going to look like in the final file. So you can do some sort of cinematic shots with the NEO using the RC2 or the RC-N3. If you want to get into FPV, it flies with the Motion Controller 3. Now, the Motion Controller 3, if you're not familiar with it, uses wrist movements to tell it which way to go. It's a totally different way of flying, but a lot of people really like it and a lot of people find it easier. So if you're flying in stabilized mode using the Motion 3, you can actually hit some really amazing gaps pretty easily just by lining up the little crosshairs and pulling the trigger. It's quite an experience. I recommend it if it's something you want to try. But for me, I like to fly this thing with the FPV RC3. And it allows you to fly it in stabilized or sport mode, normal or sport mode, or you can flip over to manual mode. And that's really the big thing about this drone. If you're wanting to start off really simple and just learn how to fly a drone, get used to it, see what it's like, see if you enjoy it, and then migrate into FPV, the fact that you can fly this with the actual FPV controller that controls so many other drones. It controls the Avata series drones. It can control other non-DJI drones that have a DJI receiver in them. It's this whole world of FPV that you're opening up, and it's a very simple way to do it by getting the FPV RC3 and then getting the DJI NEO and learning how to fly it in acro. And if you're flying FPV, of course, you're gonna need goggles to be able to see what the drone is seeing. It works with the Goggles 3 and the Goggles N3. Now, the Goggles 3 are kind of top of the line goggles right now from DJI, and it looks fantastic in the goggles. The Goggles N3 are the less expensive version of the Goggles 3. So if you're trying to learn FPV on a budget, the Goggles N3 are a great way to go. They don't have all of the bells and whistles that the Goggles 3 have, like some of the focusing mechanisms and stuff like that's a little different, but it's still an amazing experience to fly with the Goggles N3, and they cost a lot less, and they do pair with the DJI NEO. One of the biggest things that surprised us was the fact that you can turn the DJI NEO into manual mode. Manual mode is where there's no stabilization being done by the drone to keep itself level. And while that sounds terrible to a beginner, it's really freeing. It allows you to fly so much more interestingly and to do tricks and to do stunts and to do rolls and to do loops and dives and all kinds of stuff that you can't really do in stabilized mode. And that's where you really have the joy of flying FPV. You don't have to start off with that, but it's pretty easy if you want to get to that. Now, I'm going to tell you that it isn't as powerful as other FPV drones. It's really designed to be kind of a hybrid of a lot of things. So you're not going to be able to rip it quite as much as you see these FPV pilots doing crazy stunts. It's not that kind of FPV flying, but to learn how to fly FPV very easily with the goggles and the FPV RC3, it is really amazing when you can flip it over to manual. And when we got this, I thought it was just going to be kind of a selfie drone that you could fly with a controller if you wanted to. As soon as I saw that you could flip it into manual, it just kind of blew my mind because that made this drone so much more fun and so much more compelling to me, and a drone that I want to recommend to people because of the fact that you can grow with it as you go. But because the NEO can do so many things, it doesn't really do the best at any one thing. And what I mean by that is this is very general in terms of a drone. It can do a lot of stuff, but it's not going to be the best at any one of those things. It does all those things pretty well, and for a beginner, it's going to be great. But for somebody who wants a very specific task with their drone, you might look at a more specialized drone. For example, if all you want to do is do selfies and not even have to use a controller, maybe just use your phone or just launch from your hand using the buttons, then I really recommend the DJI Flip. It's designed specifically for that, and it has a better camera than this does. If you just want a toy drone to goof around with, I will tell you this is a little bit overkill and probably a bit more expensive than you should spend. You should just go out and buy yourself a nice Tomzon or Sima or some other cheap drone. And by the way, don't buy a drone that costs between $100 and $300. Those are generally trash. Either go for one that's more expensive or less expensive. And in the case of a toy drone, I think 50 to 70 bucks is a great amount to spend for a toy drone. Don't worry about the camera, just get used to flying it. But it's gonna be a lot cheaper way to go if you want a toy than the NEO is. And of course, if you want a camera drone, this is not the best camera drone. There are much better camera drones out there that aren't a whole lot more expensive than this is. It does a decent job with its image stabilization through electronic image stabilization, but it's not gonna be as good as a full 3-axis gimbal. It doesn't do 4K 60, a lot of things like that. If you want an inexpensive camera drone that you can get really amazing shots of video and photos with, I would probably recommend the mini series from DJI versus the NEO. And of course, if you're wanting to do cinematic FPV fly-throughs and stuff like that, this isn't a bad place to start. but it's quickly going to become apparent that it has some problems when it comes to flying in dark areas, and it also doesn't have quite as good a footage because the camera's not as good as some of the higher end FPV drones, particularly cinematic, Cinewhoop style FPV drones like the Avata series. If you want to be able to get into doing that, you could start with this, but you'll quickly outgrow it because you'll want to have a better camera and better images, and the Avata series is going to do a better job than the Neo. And then finally, as far as compromises go, yes, you can fly this in manual mode. Yes, you can do rolls. Yes, you can do flips. Yes, you can probably even power loop it if you're a really good pilot. But it is a little bit underpowered for a freestyle quad. So just know that when you get into flying manual, you can start off and do some things that are pretty cool, but eventually you will want a more powerful, a better power to weight ratio. And so I recommend looking at Flywoo or GEP-RC or Emax as an alternative if you want to get into flying FPV freestyle. But don't get me wrong, if you are wanting to do some FPV and learn how to do it, the Neo is a really great place to start because it is small, it is safe, it's okay to fly around people, it's sub 250. And so if you're wanting to learn how to, say, chase somebody on a bike or on a one wheel, or just have some fun flying FPV and be fairly near to people, I think the Neo is a good option to learn on. And then when you graduate from that, you can go to a bigger quad, which might not be quite as safe and small as this one, but you're a better pilot at that point. So hopefully you're making good decisions about how you fly around people. With this one, you don't have to worry about it too much. I've had this bump into me many times, and because the props are covered and because it's so small, it doesn't really hurt you. But bottom line, why we love the DJI NEO is it is like a buffet. You get to try a little bit of everything, and you get to see what you like and what you don't like, and what your favorite thing is, and what you're more interested in and less interested in. So by getting the NEO, you can do all these things, learning how to use a selfie drone, learning how to use a camera drone, learning how to use an FPV drone, learning how to fly with the motion controller, learning how to fly with a regular controller, learning how to fly FPV with goggles. All of those things are available on this, and that's why this is the most versatile drone in 2025. So if you want to learn more about the NEO, there's a ton of videos that we've made about what we like and also what we don't like about it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below and we will get back to as many questions and comments as we can. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Ready, Set, Drone. Now click below and buy yourself a NEO.
Sorry. Look how safe that thing is. It wouldn't hurt you, Chris.
That again.
I'm not trying to hit you, I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
It
Bit
likes
aggro today, Kelly.
you can do some sort of cinematic cinematic.